All right, everyone. Hope your Sunday's going well. Me and the three amigos are going to go over Jason Hartman's last this last posting, and it's entitled "How the Current Rental Market is Affecting Real Estate Investors and Where to Go from Here." And in this, he has Stephen Thomas that goes over some really good data and analytics. So I'm going to go over it and briefly summarize it, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on some things that he may not be aware of, and so how he's wrong per se. We'll see what happens, right? Because funny thing that he repeats time and time again through it is that every investor's famous last words are, "It'll be different this time." Ironically, in there he talks about it being different. so, real quick. So about Jason Hartman, I've actually met him in person. He's a great guy. He's one of the things I love about him is that he is very detailed, analytical, and he looks at through different lenses. Like I think he's the only one that did I think he's got trademarked actually that the model of housing prices correlated to barrels of oil, correlated to gold, correlated to all these other assets, or even Bitcoin, I think it was, and it gives a good eye of okay, is housing overvalued or not? And he makes a really good case for it. It's like it's not overvalued, right? And so I like that about him, and I like that he's really big in the real estate. Some of the things I have the issues with him is that he's a bit biased towards real estate, right? It makes it. I think he treats it, or at least maybe it's because it's his industry and he has to or whatnot, but he comes off as it's like a silver bullet for all financial problems, right? Just buy houses and rent them out. Just you have financial problems, just buy a house, rent it out. You'll be a zillionaire if you keep doing it. And I'm like, it's a nice thought, but I don't think that's really what you want to be pushing. Now, granted, it could be really his personal belief. It could be just that he's in the industry and he's teaching education, so he has like housing markets, everything, right? I come from a side of I love real estate, help me make my first million type thing, but I recognize that there are different asset classes, there are different businesses, and there are a ton of ways to make money out there. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, their pet rocks were a big thing. The guy made millions of dollars selling pet rocks for $1. Literally, rocks he would get and he would glue googly eyes onto it and he would sell it for $1, and he made I think $1 million plus. So you can make a lot of money on a lot of stuff. Housing is one of them. It is one of those assets, and it has some great potential. Like it has made housing and real estate has made the most millionaires current to date out of that one asset. That one asset class has helped the most people get to a millionaire status. Now, I will say this. There are no billionaires who have had housing help them get to that billionaire status, right? So you see the perks and the okay. Well, let's think it's not a silver bullet. That's the biggest thing I'm trying to get through this. So in this video, they bring up some really good topics, and again, this is a brief overview. One is the majority of the mortgages out there are at 4% or below, right? 65%. And of that, I think 28% or something like that were at 3% or below. So averaging about like in that 65%, it averaged about 3.5 to 3.75, which is typically what rates were for the last 3 to 4 years. So that makes sense. But it says 65% of the mortgages in the U.S. have an interest rate of 4% or below. That's a really good data point, right? Because the what they're trying to extrapolate in the video from that data point is that interest rates are so low, the payment's so low, people are never going to give up their house ever, right? And so there's no housing crash that's going to come. We'll get back on that. And he talks about another good thing they bring up is they talk about inflation will be around for this century, right? That the Fed screwed up, they should have tightened rates a long time ago, and they're going to try and backtrack. And I'm actually on that bus too. I think inflation will last longer than we think it will. I think we are headed into a stagflation to where wages stagger, and inflation is high, and asset prices are being brought down. In fact, in a YouTube short in the middle of my kitchen, it just hit me. It took all of this money being thrown into the system, it took 2 years to get us to inflation where we're at, right? So regular 4% inflation to, let's be real, it's more like 18% inflation depending on how you count the stuff. It took us 2 years to get there, and a $5 trillion dump into it over the span of about 12 to 16 months, It took us 2 years to get where we're at. Now, the Fed has started to tighten down, and they've just started this year. And they were very shy this year about it, and then now they're just 75 basis points every month or every time they're going to raise it seems. It hit me. I postulated this. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it hit me. It took 2 years to get us to the hyperinflation we're at right now at 18%, which is not super duper hyperinflation, but it's on that more towards that side. It could take the Fed 2 years of ratcheting it down to beat this inflation. What does that mean? That means it's going to be a very rough, not just 2 years, 2 years to get it down, and then we have to pick the pieces up afterwards. So it kind of echoes what I've been hearing from a lot of big millionaires and billionaires with gray hair. Love those guys and girls. But they said this: we may be headed for a salad bowl recession, towards a very slow recession. Has a bowl, and then it comes up very slowly as well, as opposed to just a big crash, bottom, and then coming up and being fixed in 18 to 24 months, right? Which is the typical recession. So this one might be different. Anyhow, so they bring up some really good point about mortgages being 4% and below, and inflation being around. That's going to help keep prices and everything like that. And they kind of piddled around. Yeah, there'll be some few jobs, but real estate is the thing, But what they don't really consider, here's what I'm pick on them about, is the interest rate doesn't matter if you don't have a job to pay for the mortgage. It doesn't matter. If you don't have a way to pay for it, then there's no way for you to afford it, right? So if you burnt through your savings, if you sold your assets, you're going to try and hold on to that thing as long as you can if that's what you want to do. But if you don't have a job, it's a matter of time. Not having a source of income is a drippy bucket problem, right? It's going to get worse with time, not better. This is why I love to have, typically my income sources, I have 2 to 3. I don't have 15 because that's 15 places my mind had to go. I don't even have a day of the week for each of those I managed to put into it, right? And yeah, you could say it's passive, but passive is mostly passive. There are very few things that are 100% passive, right? We offer one of those because in reality, we do the work for you, and that's part of the deal. So it's passive to you in a sense, right? So if you don't have income, it doesn't matter what the mortgage rate is. You could buy it at 3%. You could buy it at 10%. You could buy it at 1%. If that if you can't pay the mortgage, you're going to get foreclosed on. The interest rate just helps you pay the mortgage down a little easier. That's all it is. Really, that is all it is. So they don't consider that. All right, and the Fed is saying they want unemployment up, so they're going to keep ratcheting down, and it's going to get really bad. I'll get to more on that later. I'll wrap on that. So let me be clear on this in my notes. The average American loses their job. They're not even going to pay for a mortgage, even if it was 1%. They don't take into consideration the price of the house that the buyer purchased it and how that will affect them moving forward if the value goes down. So again, they are buy and holders. That's what they live by. It's like buy and hold type thing. It's great. Cash flow is great. I'm not going to say it is, but to pretend that cash flow is everything, I think it's a bit of naivete. Okay? The purchase price does matter. The way the loan is constructed does matter. Are these things all just pick, hey, the price only matters, or hey, only the loan matters, or hey, only my interest price matters, all this other stuff? No. There's a combination of these things that make a good deal, right? So in today's market, in the city I'm living in, the average, last time I checked, the average house was, I think, $370,000 or something like that. We'll say $350 just to make it even. It was $350,000, right? And that's people paying that with a, like 3 to 4% interest rate. Current, now they're up to 7. I'd buy a house. I'd buy that same house with a 20% interest rate, but I'd buy it at 150,000, right? I would be less likely to buy it at 450,000 with a 0.5% interest rate. Okay, the price that you purchase it matters. If the value goes down or if you overpay, then what's going to happen is if you go to the bank to buy more, which is what they want, they just want you to, they're not encouraging you to buy one house and one rental and that's it, right? They want you to buy one rental at a time or 10 at a time. You go to the bank, they're like, hey, your net worth is now lower than it was a year ago or more. They're not going to loan you as much money. You don't have collateral, as they talk, which helps back their loan. It gives them more safety. They don't talk about that. So if you buy a house right now, even though it has a low mortgage rate, but we're at all-time high prices and it's about to go down, it's going to affect you in the long run. Here's the thing: they make it sound like holding real estate through an economic recession is a very hard time for people and their finances is easy. It's not. Okay. This is why one of the reasons I sold majority of my houses is because having to deal with problems on the way down the economic slide, you're going to be shilling out a lot more. People are going to break their lease. You're going to have to evict them. You're going to have a big line at the courthouse to do it because everybody's doing it. People will start Googling and searching, hey, how do I stay in my house? Even though they'll appeal the process, they'll get a month more in. You have to get a constable out there. Then you finally walk in and you got to redo all the interior and stuff, and it's just really, really costly. It's better, it's easier, it's more carefree just to sell at the top and just chill for a little while, man, or look for another asset class to put it in. You can always buy back into real estate. So this is why I think Jason Hartman is possibly wrong. I don't think the housing market is going to have this huge crash. I think it's going to go down by maybe like 5 or 10% a year, maybe 15% a year for like 2 or 3 years. That's 30 to 45%, maybe even cresting 50% in some areas. That is a crash. That's not a crash. That's the same numbers for a crash, but spread over a long period of time, right? Again, I don't think he gives the full truth on or gives full thought on the ramifications of just buying for cash flow and buying at too high of a price. Even in their conversation, they talked about prices going low. Why would I want to buy now if I know the price is going to go low? I'll just wait, and I'll buy more later. Okay, but you're missing out on the rental. Do the math. The rents aren't worth it. I mean, I should make a video. If you do the math, the rents aren't worth it. A rental, an average rental, you're just from the money you make on the top and going in the ground, not counting if anything breaks or missed mortgage months where you don't have a tenant. You only make 10 grand, 7 to 10 grand, maybe 12 a year, depending on how big it is and stuff like that. That's not worth. That's like a percent or two of a house's worth, right? So it's not worth it. It's better to wait. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. But the biggest things is he doesn't consider that the mortgage rate, that if you lose your job, doesn't matter what interest rate you have, you're still going to get foreclosed. It doesn't take into consideration the price of the house and the buyers how it affects them when they buy it, and it could affect them in the future. And he makes it sound like real estate's really easy to hold, that it's just super easy and everything's just candy drops and lollipops in the middle of an economic recession. It is hard. It is rough. It is not fun, and you're going to be shilling out probably more than you will be making. At least not worth it. It won't be worth the headache. At the same time, your house value is dropping. Why would you want to do that? Just sell.